Shalom, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Upper Room After Hours. We made it. We made it through another week. Another week in the upside down. By God's grace. There go I. So, thanks for joining me. Another great episode lined up. First of all, if you could do the honors, like, subscribe if you're new around here, get the algorithms going, would be much obliged. As I said in the first episode, it would be great to, really introduce a interactive element to this show. Now, one of my passions and one of the things that I really enjoy, just in terms of media and interest, is the interview format. I love watching interviews. I have done for a very long time. I just think it's an amazing way in which information can be shared and that we can learn and grow and develop. And so it's a fascinating medium to be able to be part of, particularly in a modern context. So it's our hope that we can integrate that within this show. As you know, within the podcast, I get to interview a range of guests on a multitude of topics, and I think this is a great opportunity to have that experience with you, the viewer, to genuinely hear your interests, your opinions on certain matters in the world. Obviously, you know that we're looking at world issues, current affairs through a biblical lens, for a biblical framework. So it's really an interesting place that we can share and share ideas and see what the general consensus is on certain subjects. Shout out our brother Josh for the music. Very talented individual, great musician. Go to his Instagram. It's Knack Producer, N-A-K the producer. Phenomenally talented individual, and shout out for the tunes. So great show lined up today. Got a couple of spicy ones lined up. Look forward to getting into it and chopping it up. And so without further ado, let's jump in. So this first story, it's taken from a group called Live Action, who do some incredible work in the areas of pro-life. Again, it's a subject that's very prevalent, just in terms of what we're seeing in mainstream media. A lot of debate. We've obviously had the Roe v. Wade narrative that's popped up recently. And it's one of those polarizing subjects, but as in the days of Noah, so shall it be the coming of the Son of Man. And every now and again, we see something that comes through the pipeline, which is a clear indication that there's nothing new under the sun. That there's a regurgitation of the doctrine of demons that manifests in a modern context. And I saw this earlier on in the week and thought this is a prime example. Shout out Live Action. They do a lot of amazing work. Their apologetics on the subject of abortion is incredible. I think that's spearheaded by a lady called Lila Rose, very adept at in the field. And check out their work, and it's great. So let's get into it.
First trans woman to have a successful uterus transplant, ovaries and eggs included, and I want to be the first trans woman to have an abortion.
You are not only wanting to risk putting your body in harm's way by doing a surgery that could potentially kill you, by implanting a uterus, eggs, and ovaries into your body, and then be the first trans man, woman, whatever, to become pregnant But it doesn't stop there. You want to be the first man to have an abortion. To prove what? That your fake organs work? Because honestly, to become a woman has nothing to do with can you abort or not. That's not the definition of womanhood. So, I mean, honestly, this is probably the craziest thing I've heard today.
The first trans woman to have a successful uterus transplant, ovaries and eggs included, and I want to be the first trans woman to have an abortion.
What we have there is, when I first came across this, I was shocked. It's shocking, but I'm not surprised at the same time. I can't even call it a woke agenda because this goes beyond the pale of any rational thought or debate on the subject. And I'm not surprised that we've come to this point in the road where we even have this thought process, these ideas that are coming through into culture and society. I don't think it's any coincidence that we've just been through the Torah portions through the Book of Numbers, and there's examples where Yahweh, God, instructs the Israelites to go out and smite lands and enemies, particularly the Amalekites and the Hittites, all these ites, the great giants and Canaanite foes, as it were. And this is where the apologetics for the God of the Old Testament come to fruition, where he's a tyrant, he's a murderer, he kills children, and all of these despicable descriptions of God, of Jesus, as a matter of fact, start being used by particularly atheists. Anybody who's essentially godless will use this as a part of the armory in terms of the defamation of the character of Yeshua. And they often neglect the context in which these things are being instructed and taking place, whereby you have cultures, societies, peoples, tribes who are essentially sacrificing children to deities and false gods, your Molechs, your Baals, and all of those ancient Canaanite deities, which are still prevalent today in today's culture, but perhaps maybe rearing in more of an insidious form, where perhaps a lot of modern cultures don't even realize perhaps quite what it is they're taking part in. However, it just begs an interesting precept to quite what it is that's taking place. Now, it's all done in the guise of progression and moving forward and equal rights and trans rights. But we know that piggybacking these narratives is essentially the doctrine of demons and the spirits of old. It says in the word that the spirit of Amalek will return generationally to oppose God's people and essentially the divine natural order of things. And here we are today. We have an individual who's saying, first of all, I want to, get Frankenstein on it and insert ovaries in a uterus and have a child, which is, right, that's madness, step one, And step two is premeditated murder, essentially. I'm going to have a baby for the sake of killing it. What is going on there? Well, how have we come to this point? How is this even allowed to be a conversation or an aspiration? So it begs the question, really, like, how do we deal with this? In the Old Testament, I don't even want to say in the Word, there's very clear instruction to go and take these people out of the game, essentially. And obviously those who live by the sword die by the sword. We're in a different context, a different era. However, we have that righteous anger. We have that disgust and responsibility to oppose these doctrines and ideas. And I just think it's a very challenging area in which how do we deal with this now? You know, in my flesh, I'm looking at the individual. I'm looking at the tone of voice, the deliverance, the triggering element to this message, and you see the demonic behind it. But in my flesh, I want to have reparations against the individual. You know, I feel like I want to take revenge, and we know, thankfully, that revenge is of the Lord. But how quickly does it take us to get to that point of Ephesians 6 of seeing the powers and the principalities, the spiritual wickedness in high places that are operating behind the individual? Because that's what we're dealing with when it comes to that level of evil, when it comes to that level of deception. You know, you could arguably take the individual out of the equation. However, you're still left with that disembodied spirit of Amalek operating behind the veil, so to speak. So it's it's a very triggering, very difficult, and just frankly an amazing principle that we're having, that we're even entertaining these ideas. So very provocative, very emotive, and some food for thought. One to chew on. So how do we respond to this? How do we get to that point of praying for these individuals? Are these narratives going to get any better? Or is there worse to come still? Just a couple of thoughts to dwell on. Feel free to let us know in the comments below what you think about this, and it'll be interesting to see your opinions. So for our next topic, I think unless you've had your head buried under the sand and you have absolutely no idea in terms of what's been going on of late, there has been a recent movie release. It's called The Sound of Freedom. Now, when I first came across this movie, it sounded amazing in terms of the premise. For those that aren't aware, it's a movie based on the Underground Railroad network, where it's essentially Jim Caviezel, who more famously played Jesus in the Mel Gibson's Passion movie. He's playing an individual called Tim Bullard, who was essentially an ex-CIA agent. Excuse me. And he was spearheading operations that were infiltrating and taking down child sex trafficking rings in and around South America, I believe, Colombia, Mexico. And so on the face of it, it's like, oh wow, amazing. There's a movie, a mainstream movie that's coming out that actually beat Indiana Jones, the new release, at the box office. Did some serious numbers despite being an independent movie. And just for some context, I believe that this movie was made and finished back in 2018, and it's originally done under Fox Studios, that distributor, but they were essentially taken over by Disney. Disney then shelved the project, and then here we are 5 years later, and Angel Studios, the infamous Angel Studios, took it upon themselves to release this movie. So, yeah, on the face of it, it's like great. The more exposure to this area, the better. And what a great way for people to become aware of a very real, very serious, and a terrible problem that's plagued civilizations for millennia now. Some light is being shed on it. So on the face of it, it was like great. However, it's transpired that there may be some correlations out there that possibly, make me feel slightly uncomfortable. Now, I don't have like a fully resolved conclusion on this subject, and just for the sake of transparency, I can't present to you a full start, beginning, end conclusion on the matter. And that's where I think this is a good opportunity on this platform to be able to share even just trains of thoughts and lines of thinking to open it up, because there may be those who are, I don't know, perhaps more well-researched, have more information and more depth on the matter. There's only so much I can really research in a given period of time, and to actually create that dialogue of, quite what is taking place in real time, and to use that level of discernment in terms of what's taking place. Now, again, not wanting to negate good work, shining light in dark places, and these are all good things. Busting child sex trafficking rings, the freedom of children, like these are all incredible things. However, you can see a narrative that's being built up within the media. And I just find that it's a very interesting narrative that's taking place before us. So the reason I may be slightly hesitant is if you take the individual components of this story, I believe that there are red flags initially. So you have Jim Caviezel and Mel Gibson, super Catholics, affiliations with the Catholic Church, veneration of the Pope and that system. Albeit, a kingdom, it's a kingdom divided within itself. You've got different factions within the Vatican and the Catholic Church. So there's lots of different narratives even within that, with Vatican 1 and 2, and the historical divides within the faction and how we see that playing out. One thing is for sure, though, is that the Vatican is on a PR exercise, as it were. They're trying to recoup their PR, their representation in modern media. They've taken some hits, and Hollywood has been essentially a great stomping ground for them to be able to do that. So you have movies like this. You have, I believe Mark Wahlberg recently did a film called Father Stu, whereby he plays a reformed guy who turns into a pastor, and a story of redemption ensues. You've then got him on talk shows afterwards, advocating for the Catholic faith with the mark of Tammuz on his forehead, and just that Catholic. Again, it's hard because we're speaking about individuals who we don't personally know. Who knows about Caviezel's individual intention, Mel Gibson's individual intention? What becomes apparent is these red flags. Now, again, Angel Studios, very divisive history, recent history, whether it be the work on The Chosen, the divisive nature of where you stand on that production, littered with controversies in the time that it's been filming. And you throw it all together, and before you know it, you've got yourself quite a compelling story. Now, this is where I start getting, it evokes a memory of, let's take it back to 2017, 18. You've got Donald Trump. He's running and becoming president. He's going to drain the swamp. You've got QAnon having a surge in essentially prophetic proclamations of the satanic cabal being taken down through the works of Trump and co. And it actually, I do vividly recall at a time when, it was a time of all this hope of like, oh wow, we're going to see some major action. We're going to see some serious changes in terms of the political hierarchy and the things that have been taking place. And to condense it, we could do a full show on QAnon itself, but these things didn't come to pass. And to describe QAnon as it's an incredibly fractious area, but best described as a false prophet. There were many proclamations in terms of things that were going to take place. They didn't take place, and it basically developed into a mishmash, muddy waters of the hard evangelical right, conspiracy theory, Capitol Hill riots. Like it was just a mess. Now, what I'm trying to paint a context here is that within promoting this movie, I've seen a correlation whereby Jim Caviezel is rubbing shoulders with this QAnon phenomenon that's having a resurgence, and I'm just super hesitant about it. And again, I don't mean to negate the work of these individuals, but there's something discomforting between the relationships between these different power structures. So actor Jim Caviezel has defended the film Sound of Freedom, in which he has a lead role, amid criticism it is linked to the baseless QAnon conspiracy theory. Now, on the left, we have this narrative of, that there is there's these networks of child trafficking, a baseless conspiracy theory. There's no satanic cabal. And many of the leading news broadcasters from a left perspective are like denying and almost protecting these institutions. In July 11th edition of the Charlie Kirk Show, hosted by Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, Caviezel addressed claims that he and the Sound of Freedom were QAnon adjacent. Now, according to the actor, when he was filming the movie, he had no idea of what QAnon was and what it stood for and everything, but he's found himself interweaved in this narrative. Caviezel compared people who believe in the theory to Christians persecuted by the Pharisees, an ancient Jewish group mentioned in the Bible. Caviezel correctly stated that there had been ties between the KKK and members of Congress, but erroneously stated congressmen had not gone after them or Nazis, only the QAnon. He added, now by the way of analogy, if the Apostle Paul, and I'm a Pharisee, and I'm going to go after Christians and take them down, now let's remove Christians and make it QAnon. I'm going to destroy them because the Romans told me they are evil. I'm going to destroy them because my own church staff, my fellow Pharisees said evil, well, I'm going to take them out. Now, it's this premise. Now, Caviezel himself, he gives many interviews and he speaks a lot of truth, and for the lion's share of things, seems very genuine in terms of the perspective he's coming from. But if you have a little dig around, there are some questionable elements to him and his ties, and you just don't know with it, an actor being in Hollywood and whatnot. But I'm starting to see this blend of affiliation between the Christian right, particularly in America, the evangelical Christian right, QAnon, which is a very fraught area, and this affiliation. And again, just going into QAnon, Caviezel then repeated a common QAnon assertion that there is no such thing as QAnon, just Q and Anons, a phrase used by conspiracists to deflect from people it supports who deny ties to the movement. The Q refers to an individual who claimed to be inside the government and made numerous false claims that politicians were directly involved in a satanic global paedophile ring. At several points, Q made predictions online that did not happen, including that Hillary Clinton would be arrested and the Democrats would be arrested and executed on the orders of former President Donald Trump on President Joe Biden's inauguration day. And it goes on, as I said, there are many predictions made that didn't come to pass, and a lot of people were left dejected, and what ensued was just a bit of a mess. So what it says to me is that there's just plenty of areas here where I'm just left feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Are Christians being tarnished with this brush of QAnon conspiracy theorists when, you do the research, you have a look, and these things are very real. These things are ancient in its essence. You go through the bloodlines and the history of these organizations, and it's documented, and it doesn't take much to see that these things are real. And these people are speaking about some very real things, but it's is there a tarnishing that's been taking place? So it's muddy waters, and like I said, it'd be interesting to get your take on how you feel about this subject. Is there an ulterior motive, or am I just being cynical? How do you feel about the overlapping with QAnon and the evangelical right? Is QAnon just a wolf in wolf's clothing? Is this a reach? As I said, you may have done more research on this and have a bit more of an insight, so feel free to give us a shout. So it's very easy to look at the world, trawl through the news, and to become despondent about current events. Again, these aren't light issues, essentially. So I thought it's important to bring some good news, to exhort the body a little bit, as it were. And this next story is, this is for the body of Messiah who do go through trials, who do go through tribulations in our personal lives, in our sanctification with God, and our problems can feel very real. It can take time. It can take healing. There's all manner of troughs, peaks, obstacles that we deal with. But I think in the Western culture, it can be easy to forget the blessings that we have, the freedoms that we have, and more importantly, the responsibility in terms of what we're called to do. The Great Commission. And this next story is just to highlight that we aren't, dictated by our circumstances. Yeah, things happen, things come our way, we have challenges and tests, but we can't be dictated by our circumstances. And this next clip is just a highlight of what it means to give praise to God, irrespective of our circumstance. So I came across this. It is a video from God Behind Bars. Now, I don't know much about their work and what they do, but I caught a glimpse of this, and to me it just highlighted that you've got many people here who have serious circumstances in terms of whether it being, crimes they've committed, true repentance taking place, and essentially we've got a group of people who are in a maximum security penitentiary in America, and they're just having a worship session, and it just highlighted to me, it's like we can't be restricted by our circumstances when it comes to our veneration and enjoyment and joy in God. So I'm just going to let this play out and enjoy.
How you guys doing? Good? Hey, Prudence, why don't you just play? Some of you guys in this room, this is one of the only moments that you just have your time with the Lord. Like it might always be chaos or noise or whatever. So I just want to take a moment and allow you guys, as Prudence just plays, to just spend some time with Jesus. Reflect. Begin to think of things that you're grateful for. Begin to think of the riches that are yours in Christ Jesus. And just take that moment. Prudence, you just take it away. Things that you're grateful for in your life. sing. Get up and praise the Lord. Just praise the Lord. Just praise the Lord. For He is worthy. Oh, soul, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song. You got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Sing it again. Come on, my soul. Don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song. You got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah. Oh, it's not much, have nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, how great is our God. So sing with me, how great is our God. And oh, see how great is our God. Oh, sing it again.
I mean, it speaks for itself, really. Like, you look at the accumulative, circumstantial net negative in that place. You know, you've got men who are probably never going to see freedom on this side of eternity, and you know, the pain and the traumas and the repentance that's taking place in that environment would be absolutely massive. But yet when you look at that and you see the joy, you see the love, you see the veneration, and you know, it's a beautiful thing. And like I said, it was a reminder for me where it's really important to you know, give that space, give that time to the Lord, in which you can just give him your devotion, your love, and to experience that freedom, you know, that freedom that they have, that irrespective of the four walls that surround them, irrespective of the mistakes that they've made, irrespective of the lack of hope in terms of, you know, their personal lives, they still have a great love God. And I just thought that would be a good encouragement for those out there who are maybe in difficulty, who are facing a trial, who are facing a test, and just worship anyway, just praise anyway, and he'll see you through. So that one's for you. Okay, for one last outing into the weird and wonderful. Now, I'm a man of my word. I try to be. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. And I've asked people to contribute with any stories, anything that they come across, and I guess I'm duty bound to uphold that. So this one's for Joe, our minister at the Almond House. Again, he's no stranger to the weird and wonderful. And we get this insight occasionally when he's giving a teaching, and I guess for the sanctity of the pulpit, as it were, there's only so much you can go, but here I am, I'm out here in the Wild West, and I may be able to go that little bit further. So he's given me a nudge and said, Darren, you got to have a look at this, you got to cover it. So you be the judges, you make your mind up. So here we have in Mexico, a mayor marries alligator-like reptile who he calls Princess Girl. You can't make it up. Is this the next step in the Anunnaki reptilian agenda, or is this just a mad cultural ritual that we've seen now? Actually, like on the first look at this, it's quite a jovial, mad story. Victor Hugo Sosa says, during the wedding ceremony, I accept responsibility because we love each other. That is what is important. You can't have a marriage without love. I yield to marriage with the Princess Girl. And here we have the mayor in cahoots with this reptile. A mayor in Mexico has married a female alligator-like animal in a traditional ceremony which is believed to bring good fortune to his people. God help them. Victor Hugo Sosa wed the caiman reptile called Alicia Adriana as he reenacted an ancestral ritual. Now, this is what happens when you're following these ancestors, these spirits of old. They have you doing mad gear. Local law or tradition calls the creature the Princess Girl, and the mayor said the pair loved each other. Onlookers clapped and danced in San Pedro Huamalula, a town of indigenous Chontal people in Oaxaca State, southern Mexico, as they entered into the holy matrimony. Any Mexicans out there, my apologies for pronunciations. Mr. Sousa said during the ritual, I accept responsibility because we love each other. That is what is important. You can't have a marriage without love. Very true. I yield to marriage with the Princess Girl. And he was pictured kissing the animal on the head. Marriage between a man and a female caiman has taken place there for 230 years to commemorate the peace between the Chontal and the Huave indigenous groups. Wow. That's a big effort to keep the peace. The mayor, representing the Chontal king, marries the reptile, symbolizing a Huave princess girl in a union of the two communities. Why don't you just give him the girl? Like, surely that would be sufficient. Caimans live in marshes and are endemic in Mexico and Central America, and there we have the gorgeous bride. Before the ceremony, the animal is carried from house to house so locals can hold her and dance. The reptile wears a green skirt, a colourful hand-embroidered tunic, and a headdress of ribbons and sequins. Her snout is bound shut, so there aren't any premarital mishaps. Gosh. She is later dressed in a white bride's costume and taken to the local town hall for the wedding. After the event, the mayor danced with his bride to the sounds of traditional music. We are happy because we celebrate the union of two cultures and the people are content. Wow. Okay. So, on first looking, I'm like, wow, this is just some crazy stuff. But then I thought about it, and I was actually like, well, the denigration of marriage itself. We know as Spirit-filled, born-again believers, we know what marriage represents, and the embodiment of that being the return of Messiah to take his bride, that bride being Israel. And we're familiar with the long covenantal story of the Israel of old falling into fornication, spiritual adultery, and essentially being rescued upon the return of Yeshua to take his captive bride and to restore her to freedom in hope, love, and peace and everlasting matrimony. And when you think of the depth and the wonder of marriage itself, and here we have this centuries-old pagan ritual that is, like, it's just a mockery essentially, and again another indication of the world we live in, the place that we find ourselves in, and there we go. So that one was for you, Joe. We shed some light in some pretty dark places. We go into the mouth of the reptile, the beast, as it were, and that's your lot essentially. It's been a pleasure again. I hope you've enjoyed it. As I say, feel free to get interactive, get in the comments, let's create that dialogue. I hope that's blessed you. I hope this reaches you and your family well. It's been a pleasure, and God willing, we'll see you on the next one. Shalom. Love to you all.